There we go. And we have Yud test. A person may not stand in a private domain while unlocking a public domain, or in a public domain while unlocking a private domain, unless he makes a partition 10 tefachim high. These are the words of Rav Meir. They said to him, it happened that in the butcher's market in Yerushalayim, they would lock and place the key in a window above the door. Rav Yossi says it was a wool merchant's market. A deadbolt, I'm sorry, a doorbolt which has a knob at its end, Reb Eliezer prohibits its use, but Reb Yossi permits. Reb Eliezer said, it happened that in the synagogue in Tveria they were accustomed to permit this until Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim came and forbade it to them. Reb Yossi says they were accustomed to forbid this. Reb Gamliel and the Chachamim came and permitted it to them. A doorbolt which drags on the ground, we may lock with it in the temple, but not in the provinces. But one which rests on the ground is prohibited here and there. Rabbi Yehuda says one which rests is permitted in the temple, but one which drags even in the provinces. Okay.
Okay, so now we carry on the theme of things that are permitted in the temple, but are not permitted anywhere else. So in the provinces means like anywhere outside the temple. Machzirin tzir hatachton b'mikdash. So if you have a cupboard or something that's where the lower hinge. Now we're not talking about hinges that get screwed into place here. We're talking about just
Right.
a hinge that comes up and down and like
Right.
typical Israeli door in the house. It's not
Right.
fixed in place. You can just lift it up out of place and put it back in.
Yeah.
So now in the Mikdash, you're allowed to put it back, which means that is a derabanan. Okay. אבל לא במדינה. והעליון כאן וכאן אסור. But the upper one, that is a complete act of bone according to the Tanakama. That if the upper one was dislodged, then the whole thing was going to fall off. And now
Right.
touching the difference between the upper and the lower is that it'll stay in place on the upper hinge, but on the lower hinge, it's just going to fall over. Okay. So that would be a case of bone with Deoraisa. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says, "Ha'elyon b'mikdash v'atachton b'medina." He says, no, even the top one is not really a daraisa. It's even that is only aser because of a shvus, because of a drabanan. And he says there's no such thing as binyan by kalim. We're not talking about the door on a house. We're talking about the door on a little
Cabinet.
cabinet or something that's that a little portable cabinet. And he says there's no such thing as Boni Doraisa by Kalim, and therefore it would be mutter in the Mikdash because it's just a shvus. Okay. Yud Gimel Machzirin Ritia b'Mikdash. So a plaster, medical technology of the times is that let's say you have some sort of a cut or infection on your body, and you want to put a plaster on. The first thing is you take the ointment, the whatever kind of antiseptic, antibiotic, whatever kind of thing it is. It's a paste, and that's the important part of it here. Is that you have a paste, you put the paste on, and then you put a plaster on to hold the paste in place and protect it from being washed off. Okay,
Mhm.
so not that different from today's technology, uh,
Yeah.
except
Why
that
do they make such a differentiation between using the temple and the provinces? Why?
because in the temple, everyone's already got the Yiras Hashem on them.
Right.
They're already like, going to be very careful about what they do because of the holiness of the place, and therefore we don't have any need to make Isuri Durabanan because all we're trying to do is protect the Doraisa. Okay, but nobody's going to do a Doraisa in the temple. So we allow
Right.
you to do so certain things that are Durabanan are permitted inside the temple. Okay, because the Rabbanan were not gozer, not because we're allowing you to do an Issa Rabbanan. It's because the Gezerah Rabbanan explicitly excluded the temple because there was no need to make a Gezerah in the temple.
Mhm.
Okay, so now this plaster. So the Kohen was doing avoda, and because he's not allowed to have a chatzitza. Let's say it's on his hand,
Right.
and so if he's got a plaster on his hand, he cannot hold the cup for receiving the blood or whatever it is. So he's got to take the plaster off, and then there's no chatzitza anymore. Okay, but now that he's done, he wants to put the plaster back. So yeah, you're allowed to put that back. Okay, well, Loba Medina, why not? because you might come to take the paste and spread it. Now the spread is mamachek, and that is that's an issur d'oraisa there, that smoothing of the ointment on top of his skin. Okay, אבל לא במדינה. Im betchila kan v'kan asur. But what you cannot do, even in the temple, is put on the plaster for the first place, because putting on that ointment, that's a doraisa. We're not matir isur doraisa in the temple. Okay. Kan asur. Koshrin nima b'mikdash. This tying a knot. This is talking about on, let's say, one of the lyres or harps of the Levites, a string snapped. So
Mhm.
now he wants to reattach it and restretch it by putting a temporary knot on the other side. Now that would not have been allowed in outside the temple, because this is getting very close to tikkun kli and tying and being kosher. So this is an issur derabanan, but for the sake of the Leviim who are doing the avoda over here, they are they would be allowed to take the string and make a temporary knot, because they're going to be careful not to do the malacha d'oraisa while they're doing it. But
Mhm.
if it's the first time you're stringing the instrument, absolutely not. That's a tikkun kli. You've been,
Right,
or it could be a makeba patish. This is now making the kli usable for the first time.
right.
Okay. Similarly, chotchin yabelis b'mikdash, cutting off a wart in the mikdash. Now this needs a lot of context filled in over here, because the Mishnah is not explicit enough. This is talking about a dry wart, which can be cut off without drawing blood, and using it by and you use even a kli with that one. Um, let's just see there. I've forgotten what the thing was here, but kind of right about.
It says
Oh,
removing
yeah,
the tolda,
there we go.
removing a wart is considered a tolda.
Yeah. Well, Tolda is still Asa Deraisa.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, Kohen She'alta Bo Yabelis. So this is a wart is considered a temporary mum. So he's not allowed to do the avodah if he's got the wart.
Right,
Okay. So what he can do is, if it's a dry wart, he can cut it off on Shabbos by using a shinoi, for example, with his hand or with his teeth, but not with
right,
a knife. Okay. The Gemara explains that this is that if it's dry, he can even cut it with a kli. So even a wet wart, he could even cut off with his fingernails or his teeth. I don't know how much they knew about warts spreading like that. Anyway, but
I don't think I've ever seen a wart. I don't think I've ever seen a wart. I don't know.
wart?
Maybe
Really? I used to
yeah, I
have
don't,
warts. I had
never saw them.
I had a couple of them on my arm over here, which back in when I was a kid, the way to remove warts was by burning them out. So I've still got two nice big scars over here where they burned out my warts over here. And
Never saw them.
subsequently, I had warts in other places in my body, and they came up with freezing them.
Yeah, they do that freezing now. That's what they do. Yeah.
So freezing doesn't leave a scar. Just makes a big blister, and then the wart falls
How
off,
do
and
they occur? How do you get a wart? What is it?
it's a virus.
It's a virus.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's a in but outside of the mikdash, you're definitely not allowed to do
These things, right?
any of these things. I need to add in a little footnote over here. All of the times when we say that you're allowed to do these things in the mikdash, invariably it's when it's involved with the avodah. It's not just
Uh,
that, you feel you've got something, you're hanging out in Jerusalem, and you have a need to do some sort of malacha derabanan, because reasons, whatever. You need to you feel like, my beard's gotten a little bit too long, so let me go into the mikdash, and now let me start just pulling out hairs, because that's that's only durabanan because your normal way it's a shinoi. Your normal way is with the scissors. So now let me go into the mikdash and I can pull out things with my hand and that's okay. No, it's not okay because it's got to be part of the avoda in order to
Right.
have this heter.
It's also painful if you pull out the hair.
Okay, let's say he likes the pain, whatever. It takes it'll take something, some other kind of shino. You get the idea of what I'm saying.
Right, right, right.
You can't just
Okay.
go and do melacha derabanan just because you're standing physically in the mikdash. It's got to be involved in the avoda. Okay, your dalid kohen she laka be'etzva'o. So the kohen got a cut, let's say, on his finger.
Right.
Korech aleha gemi b'mikdash. Now, this gemi is a kind of a reed which has medicinal properties, and that's the important part of this, is that there's a medicinal reason for doing this. And if you recall, there's an issur d'rabbanan to do any refuah on Shabbos because you might come to crush the samamanim, you might come to spread. There are all sorts of reasons why you cannot do acts of refuah on Shabbos unless you're talking about a chole. Okay, and having a little nick on your finger is not considered a chole. So now the Kohen doesn't want to be dripping blood all over, and it's painful for anyone, but he wants to do this. And let's say this is on his left hand, because if it's on his right hand, the negemi is going to be a chatzitza,
Mm.
because all of the avodah is done with his right hand. So he's got on his left hand, he's allowed to take this gemi and wrap it around his finger so that he can do the avodah in peace. Okay. He's allowed to do this in the mikdash, aval lo b'medina, but a person outside the mikdash cannot put this reed around his finger because of the medicinal properties. Im lahotzi dam, but if he's trying to do this to squeeze out blood, kan v'kan asra, that's making a chbura, issa daraisa, and you cannot do that, not in the mikdash even. Bozkin melech al gabe kevesh bishvil shelo yachliku. You can, if let's say the ramp is wet and you want to put down salt to make it less slippery, um, you can do that. But this is in parentheses. This is not allowed outside of the mikdash because it's like a mataken. It's you're fixing up a
Right.
structure. Okay. Umamalim mibor hagolam umibor hagadol begalgal b'Shabbos. Now, this is an interesting point about using a water wheel to draw water out of a well. Um,
Mm.
in Why would this be asur? Is again derabanan. We don't like people to use water wheels on Shabbos because it pulls out a lot of water, and now he's going to start spilling it and irrigating his field with it.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
so in general, we don't like water wheels on Shabbos, but in the Mikdash, you've got two places that people have water wheels pulling things out on Shabbos, and this is fine. It's called the Bora Gola and the Bora Gadol. They're both
Right.
inside the Mikdash and they're both mutar. Ber Hakar beyond Now Ber Hakar is outside of the Mikdash. It's a large well of fresh water, and when people were making Aliyah L'Regel from Chutz La'aretz to come to Yerushalayim, they would pass by this, and it was a great place as a watering hole. And so if they reach this place on Yom Tov, they're allowed to draw water out of it using that water wheel. Because it's for a Tzorech Harabim, they were specifically matir that one to use the water wheel on Yom Tov,
Mhm.
and specifically on Yom Tov, because this is
Not Shabbos.
coming
Okay.
when people are coming Aliyah L'Regel.
Right.
But no other wells got that particular heter.
Okay.
Okay, tomorrow we finish and
Yes.
on to Psachim.
I'm sorry, Pesachim?
Psachim.
Pesach is coming so fast.
Yeah.
Pesachim. Okay. Oh, sorry. Move on. Okay. We have Chet Gimel. If the residents of a courtyard and the residents of a gallery forgot to make an Erev, whatever is higher than 10 tefachim belongs to the gallery, less than that to the courtyard. The embankment around the pit or a rock which is 10 tefachim high belongs to the gallery, and less than that to the courtyard. To what do these words apply? To that which is near, but that which is at a distance, even if it is 10 tefachim, belongs to the courtyard, and what is considered near, whatever is not 4 tefachim away. If one places Erev in a gatehouse, a colonnade, or a gallery, the Erev is not valid, and one who lives there does not restrict it. In a silo barn, woodshed, or storehouse, the Erev is valid, and one who lives there restricts it. Rabbi Yehuda says if the owner retains a holding there, he does not restrict it. One who left the Sabbath house and went to spend the Sabbath in another town, whether a Gentile or a Jew, restricts. These are the words of Rav. Rabbi Yehuda says he does not restrict. And Rabbi Yossi says a Gentile restricts, a Jew does not restrict, for it is unusual for a Jew to return on Sabbath. When Rabbi Shimon says even one who left his house and wants to spend Shabbos at his daughter's house in the same town does not restrict, for he has already dismissed any thought of returning from his mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Shabbos.
Okay, base Himmel. We may not soak asafida in warm water, but we may put it into vinegar. We may not soak vetches or rub them, but one may put them in a sieve or put into a basket. And we may not sift straw with a sieve, nor put it on a high place so that the chaff will drop. But one may take it up in a sieve and pour it into the feeding trough. We may sweep out the feeding trough from before a stall, ox, and we may move it on the sides because of the excrement. These are the words of Reb Dosa, but the Chachamim prohibit it. And we may feed from the one before one animal and place it before another on Shabbos. Straw that is on the bed, one may not move it with his hand. Anybody may move it with his body. If it was fodder for animals, or if a pillow or a sheet was over it, he may move it with his hand. A householder's clothes press we may undo, but we may not press down. A launderer's press, however, we may not touch. Rabbi Yehuda says if it was undone from before the Shabbos, one may undo it completely and remove it. Okay. Shani, we have base Yud. If if one may not buy truma with mice, no, it's wrong. Yeah, wrong thing. I'm sorry. If one of one's sons were unclean and some were clean, he lays down the cellar and says, "Let the cellar be in exchange for what the clean drink." Thus, the clean and the unclean may drink from one jar. A man may not say to his fellow, "Take this produce up to Yerushalayim for a share," but he may say to him, "Take it up, and we shall eat it and drink it in Yerushalayim." But they may give it to each other as a present. One may not buy truma with Ma'aser Sheni money because it reduces the number of his consumers. But Reb Shimon permits. Reb Shimon said to them, "Why, if they rule leniently regarding peace offerings, which he renders pickled, notu, or unclean, shall we not rule lenient in the case of truma?" They said to him, "Why, if they rule leniently regarding peace offerings, which are permitted to non-priests, shall we rule leniently in the case of truma, which is forbidden to non-priests?" Okay. And Nida. Okay. Hey. A boy who is 9 years old and one day old, who with Yivrama acquires her, but he cannot give her a bill of divorce until he reaches adulthood. Furthermore, he becomes tummy by cohabiting with Anita to the degree that he will render a bottom couch as tummy as that to which is on top. He disqualifies a woman with whom he cohabitated, but it does not cause the woman to eat truma. He disqualifies an animal from being offered on the altar, and the animal is stoned to death on his account. And if he cohabitates with any one of the arayas, forbidden partners mentioned in the Torah, they are put to death on his account, but he is not liable to punishment. A girl who is 11 years old and one day, her vows are examined. A girl who is 12 years and one day, her vows stand. But a girl's vows are examined her entire 12th year. A boy who is 12 years and one day old, his vows are examined. A boy who is 13 years old and one day, his vows stand. And a boy's vows are examined his entire 13th year. Before this time, even if they say, "We know unto whom we vowed, we know unto whom we consecrated," their vows are not valid vows, and their consecrations are not valid consecrations. After this time, even if they say, "We do not know unto whom we vowed," or "We do not know unto whom we consecrated," their vows are valid vows, and their consecrations are valid consecrations. Okay.
Also Zion.
Zion. The sages created a metaphor for the development stages of a woman, a green fig, a small fig, and its semel. At the stage when she is likened to a green fig, she is a child. The stage of a small fig alludes to the days of Nadaris period. During both this stage and that stage, her father is entitled to her fines and to her earnings and to the annulment of her vows. Semel alludes to a stage of full adulthood. Once she reaches full adulthood, her father no longer has authority over her.
Okay.
And Mechoros is Daled base. If it developed a blemish during its first year, it is permissible to keep it for an entire 12 months. After its first year, he may keep it only until 30 days. If one slaughters a bechor and then shows its blemish, Rabbi Yehuda says permits it. Rabbi Meir, however, says that since it was slaughtered without the sanction of an expert, it's forbidden. If one who was not an expert expected of a Kohen and it was slaughtered by a sanction, he must be buried. It must be buried, and he must make restitution from his property. If one derived a verdict and he declared the guilty party innocent, or he declared the innocent party guilty, or he declared something tameh which was in fact tahor, or he declared something tahor which was in fact tameh, what he has done is done, and he must make restitution from his own property. But if it was an expert approved by the court, he is exempt from making restitution. And it happened that a cow's womb had been removed and ripped off and fed it to the dogs, and the case came before the Chachamim, and they declared it permissible. Todos, the physician, said not a cow or so leaves in Alexandria until its womb is cut away, in order that it should not give birth. Reb Tarfon said, your donkey has departed. Tarfon, Reb Kami said to him, Reb Tarfon, you are exempt and you are expert approved by the court, and any expert approved by the court is exempt from making restitution.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, excuse me. Okay, Aleph base. Rabbi Yehuda says from Rechem eastward is considered outside Eretz Yisrael, and Rechem is that like the east. From Ashkelon southward, and Ashkelon is like the south. From Akka northward, and Akka is like the north. From Meir says Akka is like Eretz Yisrael regarding Gittin. One who brings a get within Eretz Yisrael is not required to say it was written in my presence and signed in my presence. If there are any protesters against it, it should be validated through its signatures. One who brings a get from overseas and is unable to say it was written in my presence and signed in my presence, if there are witnesses on it, it should be validated through its signatures. Both Gittin and documents of emancipation of slaves correspond to regard to being taken from Eretz Yisrael and being brought there. This is one of the ways in which Gittin correspond to documents of emancipation of slaves.
Okay. That's it.
And tomorrow, Pesachim.
Pesachim.
I'm not going to not cleaning my house yet. Have a good week. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.